Listen up, Marks. We're back for another episode of Slamtown. Of course, your home for professional wrestling, where we debate some of the best subjects in wrestling today. Today's subject: who is the best wrestler in the world, and what defines that? What's the criteria for saying the best wrestler in the world? Is it, who draws the most money? Who's the most technical? We'll get into all that. Of course, my name's Mike Ginn. I'm joined as always by my co-host Dan Bakley. Dan, what's up, buddy?
Not too much. Another day, no doubt.
Man, come on, Dan. You were all fired up before we hit the record button. Now, all of a sudden, he's all like calm, talking. We're going to get Dan fired up eventually back in this episode. If we have to, I'll pull some dirty tricks. But, I am a heel, and it is what I do. So, there you go. Of course, this episode brought to you on the Fighters First Network, fightersfirst.shop. Get all your latest merch. We got the Slamtown merch up on there. We got Dan's Cage My IQ merch up on there, as well as everything else from the network. The British Bulldog collection. It goes on and on. So check out fightersfirst.shop. Go ahead and get some great holiday merch. Holidays are coming up quickly. That said, Dan, you ready to jump into this episode?
Yeah, I'm ready. It's a good conversation to have. I'm ready to hear what you have to say.
Well, there's a lot going on in the world of professional wrestling, so we could obviously talk about a number of things, especially with all the WWE roster cuts and everything. But this is a subject that always seems to get brought up every time something big happens in the world of professional wrestling. Of course, we're recording this. It'll be out shortly, but we're recording this right after Kenny Omega lost his belt to Adam Hangman Page. He's the new AEW champion. But Kenny Omega, for Pro Wrestling Illustrated's purposes, is the best wrestler in the world today. He was ranked number 1 on their list, followed by Roman Reigns, Bobby Lashley, Drew McIntyre, and Kota Ibushi. I think to start this conversation off, I think we have to really kind of come up with a couple different things, right? So first and foremost, like I mentioned in the intro, what defines the best wrestler in the world? Because in order to answer that question, you almost have to suspend disbelief for a second, right? Like, we know we're not naive. We're huge wrestling fans, but we know this is a business. This is a choreographed, scripted, entertainment-based business, right? These are highly athletic men and women going to work every day, doing a job. And I've had this conversation off air a number of times about wrestlers like John Cena, right? For years, John Cena and his 5 moves of doom, kind of like Hulk Hogan, in the years before. Were they the best wrestler in the world? Well, it depends how you look at it. Were they drawing the most money? Then that make them the best wrestler in the world? Or could they put on a 5-star match every single time they stepped in the ring? And I think that's really the question that kind of comes to mind, because in the end of the day, these men and women are paid entertainers. Dan, if you had to, before we even get into the subject of who's the best, if you had to decide what in your mind qualifies someone to be the best wrestler in the world?
For me, there's several aspects that decide who the best wrestler is. There's matches, there's promo, the way you talk on the mic, the way you make your opponent look, and just how you're used. I think all those put into one, to me, decide how a wrestler is the best in the world in the art of pro wrestling.
I think there's that. And one other thing, like I said, do they draw money?
Yeah.
Do they put asses in the seats? Brock Lesnar wrestles twice a year, and those pay-per-views do crazy numbers, right? Even though they're on WWE Network or Peacock now, the view ratings are insane whenever he shows up. But I don't think we put him as best in the world because he only wrestles a few times a year. Same thing with, some of these legends that come back, So there's got to be a qualifying of like, oh, they have to be like almost like a baseball average, right? You have to have a certain amount of at bats to kind of qualify for the conversation.
I think they're more of like a side attraction.
Yeah. Even though obviously Brock has been back for a number of years, but you know what I mean by that. I'll get this conversation started, and I'll give you 3 names right off the bat of the best in the world. And the reason why I'm going to give 3, because we'll narrow it down by the end of the episode, and we'll each make our own pick of who we think is the best in the world. Well, right off the bat, Kenny Omega, who's held a number of titles over the last year, everything from AAA to Impact Wrestling, and of course AEW. Roman Reigns, who's been the top guy in WWE now for well over the last year since he came back from the COVID absence, being safe and protective, obviously returning from leukemia. He had to be careful when COVID kind of first broke out, so he couldn't perform right away. And then the third guy, I don't know if I can put in the conversation because I don't know how much global appeal he has, which is sad because he speaks English. He's British, but Will Ospreay, the last year,
gonna go there.
He's been New Japan champion. He's kind of making his way back to the United States with MLW and some other stuff, and it's been teasing an AEW appearance. But a lot of the American fans don't really know who he is. And same thing with, if you want to even go Kota Ibushi, Okada, some of these guys in Japan who are over there rock stars. They show up here, it's going to be crickets. Like, they've been teasing Okada coming into AEW, and maybe he will by the time the show airs in a few days, because Dynamite will happen before the show airs. But if he does, what kind of response is he going to get? I think the diehards will know him, especially with him and Kenny Omega. But will, like, the casuals, they'll be like, who is this guy? So there's that conversation. So those are my 3 names right off the bat that come to mind as far as the best wrestler in the world. Of course, Jon Moxley was listed number 1 last year, but I always consider him more of an attraction, a draw, but not necessarily the guy who fills the seats in the arena. He's always great to watch, and his promos are pretty good, but he just doesn't. To me, he's always been like, he's going to put on a pretty fun match, but I just don't have him in that conversation.
I think what killed him was when he had his big title run. It was during the pandemic, so there wasn't anybody in the seats. So I think that was a big thing that hurt him there, because we never got to see him as champion when the crowd was there.
Same with Drew McIntyre, right?
Yeah.
So those are my 3 names. If you had to name a few that were on top of your list, who would be on your list? And you can feel free to repeat the same names if that's who you got.
I'll repeat though. I like that list. I'm going to try and come up with a 3-person list away from that, because I thought of the same list as well. But I think of a guy over in Japan who's had a great year building himself, Shingo Takagi. They've been using him a lot as they've been sending guys over to the U.S. I think that's with the Will Ospreay situation. I think maybe that's why they sent him to the U.S. for a few months, to get his name out there, to get him more creative with the U.S. Viewership over here. But you got a guy like that that's just been killing it over in Japan the past year. They've used him in every aspect. He's the world champion right now. He had that thing with the Will Ospreay. He's more like a powerhouse, but he won't get the recognition because he's just a face in Japan. In WWE, like, you got a guy like Seth Rollins. He's not champion, but the way they use him, like, he's over with the crowd, whether it's as a good guy or bad guy. He's always changing his character up. I put a guy like that there. And then in AEW, if you're not going to say Kenny Omega, see, this was kind of tough for me.
Bryan Danielson.
Bryan Danielson would be a name, just for the fact that he's there now. Like, he's over with the crowd.
I mean, if you're talking about skill in the ring, then you got to be up there, right?
Exactly. I would say him. Those are 3 guys right off the top by bat. If I'm not going to name any of the 3 that you said.
What do you think is the most important out of all of the things you listed? Is like, adding to the pot to make the best wrestler in the world, what do you think is the single most important thing?
To me, it's the mic skills, because you can have a good match and you can make your opponent look good, but if you can't speak the part, it's not helping you out. And I think that's usually the one thing that majority of the wrestlers have trouble with.
Do you think, and this is something I was also thinking about with the whole John Cena thing, do you think that WWE's style of matches, especially on the main roster, because obviously NXT, we see these even, well, especially before the 2.0, but you saw these like amazing matches back with the Undisputed Era and Thomas Ciampa and Johnny Gargano, and the list goes on, Finn Balor while he was there. You see these amazing 5-star matches all the time in NXT. But in WWE, you have this style, right? Like this made-for-TV style that Vince has is like, this is how I want my matches to go. And it kind of goes to the thought that John Cena could have always done more than 5 moves. He trains just like every other wrestler in the world, and he's done it for a long time. Yes, he had a powerhouse style when he came in as the prototype, and it goes way back in the day. But Kurt Angle, another guy who had this huge wrestling background, but really he only did a handful of moves while he was in WWE, right? Like suplex, he tried a moonsault until he damn near broke his neck. He still did the moonsault, but he kind of limited it a little bit to more special occasions. Ankle lock, Olympic slam, right? That's it.
Yeah.
Steve Austin, who had a number of moves in WCW, came over to WWE, kick, punch, stunner, maybe a suplex here and there.
He had to limit it once he had that neck injury after that own heart incident.
That as well. Yeah. But the WWE style has always been like less technical, more brawl, like more about like the fight. Roman Reigns, obviously, he's going to kick you, he's going to punch you, he's going to Superman punch you, he's going to spear you. He has his drive-by on the outside, and occasionally, now he's got the guillotine, right?
Yeah.
The moveset. And I think that's a Vince thing more than the wrestlers. I think it's insulting to the wrestlers to say they can only do certain things because they train just like every other wrestler. You sit there and watch behind the scenes with some of especially AEW, right? They all have their vlogs, right? And you watch Sammy's vlog, and you have wrestlers you never thought in the world would do a moonsault, but they're sitting there practicing moonsaults with Sammy and everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're not going to do it in the ring because that's not their character. And I think sometimes when we get caught up in the technicality of a 5-star match, I think the WWE guys get hurt in that conversation with quote unquote real wrestling fans, diehard wrestling fans, because they're not going to have a match like Omega and Bryan Danielson had at Grand Slam where they basically throw the kitchen sink at each other. They're not going to have a match like, it's another great example of just like a technical drawn out match. What's a match that really kind of caught your eye lately that was just like 5-star you had to watch?
In WWE?
Anywhere.
Anywhere? I really liked, of course, Danielson Omega. That was a really good one. And they didn't even go the Kenny Omega style. He let Bryan Danielson kind of dictate the pace.
Yeah.
And he kind of slowed it down, and it wasn't too crazy. I think for me with the WWE, it was never the pace of the matches. It was always the guys in the back that were writing the matches instead of the people in the ring.
Yeah. And that kind of goes to my point. Like, you have these matches that we see, and if you have the same people doing these, Finn Balor is a great example.
Yeah.
Finn Balor in NXT, long 15, 20 minute, 30 minute, just drawn out great matches. Finn Balor in WWE has to tune that down to about 10 minutes, maybe less, depending on his opponent. And then if he's with an opponent like a Roman Reigns, then he's even more limited because they have to make Roman look good, right? So I have a hard time nowadays deciding because, like you said, mic skills is a big thing. And if you're talking mic skills, then the WWE guys have it way over the AEW guys because even Matt Cardona, a.k.a. Zack Ryder, came out and was like, thank you, Vince, for promo school. Thank you for – and you see it in the AEW guys that came from WWE, the way they look at the camera, the way they know where to be. A CM Punk, a Miro. Like, look at Miro's expressions and the way he – everything means something when he does it, even if it's as simple as him looking at the camera. That's something you learn from the production style of a WWE. You might not – like Bryan Danielson, the way he looks at the camera – look at Bryan Danielson now, obviously it's 10, 12 years later, and look at American Dragon before when he was an independent wrestler. The stage presence is so much bigger, right?
He even said that when he started, he was a shy guy, and then now that he's been through WWE and now he's in AEW, he said that he's still that same guy. It's just that he can do things better because of the experience.
Yeah, it's like a switch they can turn on now.
Yeah.
You look at Wyndham Rotunda, aka Bray Wyatt, now off doing movies and stuff because of that presence that they develop with the camera. I think so many people nowadays, Dan, get wrapped up in this. It has to be a 5-star match. And they don't look at the numbers of why this person's on TV. If Vince doesn't like you, you may not get that rub, right? It's like, if you're on a professional sports team and you might be the most talented player on the roster, but if the coach isn't playing you because he has a problem with you, nobody's ever going to see it. And you're just a scrub because we don't know. We never saw it on TV. AEW tends to give a little bit of spotlight to everybody. Impact, the same thing. Alexander had his big run. Moose is another guy, like, I think is made for WWE eventually. Because of his style. Darby Allin has one of those styles where you have to watch it when he's on TV, but he really only has a handful of moves as well. Orange Cassidy, same thing. So it's not just WWE guys. AEW guys have that stuff too. The Young Bucks, as great as the Young Bucks are, they have spots, and they have spot after spot after spot after spot. And you can almost see them running to their spots, right? Like, it's not always the smoothest transition when they want to go from one sequence to the next. That's what I love about Kenny Omega. And as we kind of get to our conclusions and explaining to who our best wrestler in the world is today, I was never high on Kenny Omega's promo skills. I thought for years he kind of had that Japan, like, I say what I have to, but I don't really talk too much. And when he came, you could see it. He said it himself. When he came to AEW and he had to be more on the mic than he probably ever has. Because before he always had, the thank you, good night, the gun, the Bullet Club. Yeah. I bid you adieu. Like, that's not new. He's been doing that for years. But it's pretty much like how he did his promos in Japan. It was, I'm calling you out, or I just embarrassed you, goodbye. Clean her out, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's had to be more of a promo guy. And that's how you sell TV shows in America. And those mic skills you talked about, I think Kenny Omega, for my money, is the best wrestler in the world. And because he does get the opportunity, and like I said, I think that's the biggest word out of all this, opportunity. Kenny gets the opportunity to go on and put on a 30-minute match on TV, 5-star match, anything goes, because he's one of the executive vice presidents with AEW, even if Tony Khan's running pretty much everything. But he has Tony's ear. And if he says, Tony, I think this will work, Tony 9 times out of 10 is probably going to be like, all right, Kenny, let's try it. Was he toned down a little bit in the Adam Hangman Page match? Yeah, because he's evidently dealing with a shoulder injury. But Kenny Omega the last year, from AAA to Japan to Impact Wrestling to AEW, he would have gone to WWE probably if they had opened up the Forbidden Door too. He went everywhere. He did everything. Kind of reminded me of the old Ric Flair days where he was kind of like taking his title and going from territory to territory and being like, I'm the man. Woo! And going about his business. Well, Kenny Omega has done that for the last year. And I think for my money, right now, I think he's the best wrestler in the world. Dan, what's your opinion?
I agree with you. And just for the example that I'm going to give you, I look at Kenny Omega as a wrestler, and then I look at what can he do to help put a guy over that you're not thinking about. And one example is a couple weeks ago, he wrestled Alan 5 Angels. He's number 5 in the Dark Order. They opened the match on Dynamite. No one really knows who Alan Angels is unless you're like a diehard indie wrestling fan. And they lit it up.
Real quick. So on that subject, one thing I do love about AEW that WWE doesn't do as often is continuality from storylines.
Yeah.
Because that was a continuation of when he upset Kenny Omega like a year ago. And I love that AEW were like, hey, remember like 3 years ago when this happened? And they make it part of the story. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead.
No, you're good. But no one really knew who 5 was exactly. They knew he was part of the Dark Order, but you never really saw him wrestle as a singles guy. And Kenny Omega made him in that one match. It took one match to make him. Now you see him wrestle without the mask more. You see him wrestle in all these singles matches now. And he just did I know he did a triple 3-on-3 match with the Dark Order on Dark last night, but they're utilizing Alan Angels more because of the match that he had with Kenny Omega. Kenny Omega made him look good. And that's one of the criterion for me of what makes Kenny Omega the best wrestler in the world is the fact that you can make your opponent look better during that match. You can wrestle anybody. Just like you said, he goes around different territories and wrestles. He's gotten better on the mic. And then it's just the look of Kenny Omega now. And you see how he has that goatee now. He usually didn't have it. He's added to his character, just a goatee. For people are like, oh, why does he have the goatee? Why does he have that? And so people were hate him more.
He's almost got like that famous haircut.
And also the fact that he's been wrestling. A lot of people don't know he's been wrestling at Vertigo the past couple of months. Like he has vertigo.
He's got a number of issues, and he just keeps going.
He couldn't lift his shoulder in the match at 4 Gear. They're saying he couldn't do it because he was hurt, but he went through the match and continued it so he could put Hangman Page over.
Like he said, he doesn't need his shoulders to put on a 5-star match.
Yeah. And he's able to do that. Like, if I want to go in another route, just because you said Kenny Omega, you tried to take my thunder there.
I mean, come on, he's ranked number 1. He is number 1. You say the same answer. You don't have to be different just to be spiteful like you do.
But if I want to go out there and put like a wild card, like
you want to be spiteful, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna go say Will Ospreay, just because if you see how he's developed over the last couple of years, small guy, he could do anything. He was over there in New Japan in the junior division. Now he's in the heavyweight division. They're developing his character. He's being more of a bad guy. Now he's here in America. The true IWGP champion. They're trying to do that whole. I always say it's the Shawn Michaels, Razor Ramon storyline of who the real champion is. Because you have a guy go away, but come back and be like, oh, I never lost it. They just took it away.
More recently, they just brought this up. Somebody brought this up on one of the news sites. Roman Reigns.
Yeah.
He never lost the Universal title. He dropped it because of the leukemia.
Yeah.
And then he came back and got his belt back.
Yeah. And so now you have him working now he's working over here. I know it's on a different territory, but you got him coming over in the U.S. for New Japan Strong. You get him more acclimated with the U.S. crowd. He still does Rev Pro. He's the Rev Pro champion over there. He still does over there. They're trying to move him around as much as possible to gain him notoriety with everybody, but he puts on match after match after match. His promo skills have gotten a lot better. He's trying to be that heel character that Roman is in WWE and that Kenny Omega is in AEW. He's trying to do it, but I think he can wind up being better than them both just because the skill that he has overall and the fact that he's younger. I feel like he's coming into his own, and I don't think he's the best now, but that's why I said it's a wild card. But I do think in the next year or two, he will be the best.
I do think it's important for the people at home that we're kind of talking about the best wrestler in the world today.
Yeah.
Because you have names, AJ Styles. It's always going to be one of the best wrestlers in the world. He just hasn't really been in a lot of major storylines this last year. He's been in the tag team thing. He's been kind of chilling. Randy Orton is probably the most gifted and talented performer maybe ever, but definitely today. If Randy was involved in more single stuff, he didn't take a few months off here and a few months off there, I think Randy Orton is the best wrestler in the world today. And I'm a huge AJ Styles mark. Like, I am huge. Like, I got the Funko Pop right up there. Like, AJ's my dude. But we're talking about what's happened lately. Another guy, we just talked about it, Bryan Danielson. If you're talking about some of the most talented, can do everything in the ring, out of the ring, those three names have to be at the top of your list every year, year in, year out. But as of what he's done this year, as of what he's done in wrestling the last couple years, for my money, it's Kenny Omega today. If Randy Orton goes out and has a huge year next year and kind of takes back his throne, then it's Randy Orton. Because I think Roman Reigns, Big E, they're basically champion because Randy's having fun with Riddle. Like, he's having a good time hanging out with Matt Riddle. Same thing with AJ. AJ's having fun with Amos. He doesn't have to do much. He's not taking as much abuse. I think those both have a number of issues. We don't really know why Randy took time off this year. He never really said. AJ's been dealing with a number of nagging injuries. He's a lifetime. And another guy to keep an eye on, and I'll give you a chance to tell me as somebody to keep an eye on for the next year, Switchblade Jay White, who Dan posted the video of on our YouTube channel. Go check it out, talking about the Forbidden Door. The more he's in America, the bigger his profile gets. And I'll throw another name in there, Adam Cole. I think Adam Cole, he's playing around with his friends, being back in AEW. When he takes it seriously and takes it to the next step, he's going to be AEW champion, and he's going to have a run there. I have no doubt. Give me a couple names real quick to keep an eye out on the next year. And actually tell me what you think about the whole veteran versus like hot guy like Randy Orton and stuff like that right now.
I think a couple of guys to keep an eye on. There's a guy in New Japan, of course. He's always been a name there. But Hiromu Tanahashi, he's a big name out there. I'm waiting for them to finally pull the trigger on moving him from a junior heavyweight to heavyweight. That's a guy who has the whole package there. And I would like to see him come back to the States and do a little bit of work there because he did it back in the day. I think he was in TNA for a little bit and then went back over there. This guy like that, of course, you can always name Kenta. He has been over here. He's back over there, but he's actually healthy now. That was his thing in NXT.
For now.
Yeah. He's healthy. He hasn't gotten hurt at all. And then if you want to go to like AEW and WWE, of course, you're always going to wait until Johnny Gargano gets that spotlight on the main roster. His contract's up soon.
I don't think he ever will.
He should, but he could very well leave in 2 weeks when his contract's up because I think it's up on the 9th. He could leave and then go to AEW or something like that. Or a guy that I'm like waiting on. This is the guy I'm very high on that I think is going to have a big year, Buddy Matthews. He just wrestled Okada on New Japan. It was a great match, and Okada gave him great praise afterwards, and shook his hand and was like, "This guy is legit." And I think when you have a guy like Okada that gives him praise, then you know that it means a lot.
What do you think about, before we get out of here, the other part of that question, what do you think about veterans like Randy Orton, AJ Styles, in AEW, Cody Rhodes, the Bobby Lashleys, the guys who've been doing it for a number of years that we kind of just take for granted?
They're very talented. I think they're doing what they're doing for a reason. They have the longevity because of that.
We just talked about like how Omega puts over other stars.
Yeah.
I mean, Randy Orton's doing that every week.
Cody Rhodes has done it ever since he's stepped
debut.
in. If you
Sammy Guevara, right off the debut.
Yeah, unfortunately, I watched the reality show Rhodes to the Top just because I wanted to get a little bit of that inside feeling of how he is. And he even said on the show, he was like, "I'm spending too much time putting everybody else over. Now I'm not thinking about myself." And that should just be like, for a lot of people to hate him for that, he's being very unselfish. He could be selfish, and then you'd probably hate him even more because of it. And I think a lot more people should respect him for the fact that he's thinking about other wrestlers, because he knows at the end of the day, if he puts them over and builds them over as a character, then it's just going to be better off for him because there's more people in the company to work with.
They all make more money too. I mean,
Yeah.
He's an EVP. He's the executive VP. Yeah, I mean, I think that pretty much sums up this episode. Leave a comment. Drop a comment. Let us know. Twitter, Instagram. Follow us. The link is going to be in the description for our new Instagram. Make sure you give us a follow. Right now, it's Fighters First Shop without the dot. I have something in the works for a new permanent Instagram, but the link is in the description. I don't want to spoil it because I don't want somebody to jump out and steal it. But I have something in the works as soon as it becomes available in the next few days. So pay attention to that. But leave a comment here on YouTube. Subscribe, like, leave a comment. Who is the best wrestler in the world today? Who's the best wrestler overall? I mean, we could have a whole nother 3-hour conversation on overall all time. I mean, I'm a Shawn Michaels guy right off the bat. So, is it Shawn? Is it Brett? Is it everybody from Eddie Guerrero and every other technical wrestler? Is it the wrestlers today that are stealing the spotlight? Is it Ric Flair, Hulk Hogan, The Rock, Stone Cold? There's so many names, and not just WWE, WWF guys. Obviously, Japan, AEW. And that's what's great about being a wrestling fan. I think Dan can agree that right now, having competition back takes us back 20 years, having Nitro versus Raw, and that conversation we had every week before social media with our friends and talking about, did you see this? Did you see that? And that's where we're kind of at today, which is kind of great in the business. So leave a comment. Let us know, who do you think is the best wrestler in the world today? Not overall, but today. And then let us know what you think the criteria is, because there's definitely something to be said about money made in, seats and asses, because this is a business. And if they're not making money, not even Tony Khan's going to put you on TV, because at the end of the day, they got to pay their bills. And that it's an entertainment. It's a business. Never lose sight of the fact that this is a business. And just like the WWE cuts, your favorite superstar could be gone tomorrow. And 90 days without TV, their value goes down. Everything goes down. So a few people will survive, a few people swim. He just mentioned Buddy Matthews. I think he's going to have a really good run. So let's see what happens. I'm still looking forward to seeing where Braun shows up eventually. Obviously, Wyndham. We're looking forward for all that. So, Dan, any last words before we get out of here?
The only thing I have to say is, just like you said, I'm looking forward to seeing where some of these guys go. You got them. There's a rumor that that Bray Wyatt, aka Wyndham, could be going to GCW. So that'd be interesting to see there. So and then other than that, just check out your the indie scene near you. You're going to see wrestlers there seen before they get called up. That's the best way to get to know some of the wrestlers, is catch them early on rather than at their peak.
And one last comment, real quick. I know somebody's going to probably say, why didn't we include women in this list? Because they have been main eventing a lot of shows. The Britt Bakers, the Charlotte Flairs, the Becky Lynches. Blame the promoters. Because the reason why they're not on my list, even though I'm very interested in everything they're doing, Hikaru Shida is another one who's had a great year, is because the promoters are hot and cold with them. They'll be main eventing 1 week, and then they won't be on TV for 3 weeks after that. Britt Baker's been kind of the one exception, but her run's really been the last 4 or 5 months, where Kenny's been doing it all year long. It's not that we don't include the women in this list. The problem is, especially when it comes to WWE, they could be here today, gone tomorrow. You don't hear from them for months if they don't have time on the television show. And then next week, they're like main eventing to show that they still love their women's evolution. You don't know where they're going with it. Sasha Banks is another one. AEW, they've been building around Britt Baker and Ty Conti lately. But other than that, Shida was the champion forever. And then all of a sudden, she's like on Elevation and Dark. She's not even barely on Dynamite or Rampage. So blame the promoters for that one. I think the women still have a very important place in this business. Obviously, AJ, Tessa, and all of them are relaunching WoW with Jeannie Buss from the Lakers. That's going to be exciting to see. I think they'll do a great job with that. So don't think we didn't discount the women. It's just when you're talking about this list, we got to talk about the people that are in front of us on a regular basis. Thanks for watching. This is Slamtown. Make sure you subscribe, leave a comment. For Dan Bakley, I'm Mike Ginn. We'll see you next time. We're out.